You coming to the tailgate tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll be popping by.
Ooh. And a good afternoon, everybody. Hello, sports fans. Hopefully, everybody is tuned in right here, right now for another edition of the Daily Ticket. Either A, in your car with the AC blasting, or B, at home in the comforts of your own household because it is hot as a mother. Sean Barnard joining me here today on a beautiful Friday. First of all, Sean, thanks for jumping aboard and on this lovely cruise liner known as the Daily Ticket. But I do want to be upfront with you and say, I don't want a championship parade. It's too hot. It's too hot for that stuff.
I think you're the minority on that one because I'm looking at these videos popping out, and that is what it's about. I would love to be melting out there in the streets right now, celebrating with the people. That looks like a dream down there in Boston. So shout out those guys.
Did you attend any of the parades 08 or this last Eagles one, 2017?
Yeah, the Eagles parade I made did not make 08. Was not allowed out of school from the mom at that point in time. But the Eagles parade, I was there and present and living it up. So I remember that one quite clear.
I
Also
think
made it into
go
Philly the
for
night after they won too, which was tremendous. Like that night
yes.
was sick. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the night. I definitely we were out to like 6:00 in the morning when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. And then the parade was an S show, normal,
Yep.
standard. I would imagine it's the same. I'm waiting for the Boston faithful to be fighting each other. That's coming soon. Celtic jersey on top of Celtic jersey, just fighting each other. I don't think we had any of that here in Philly when that went down. But all right, let's get to it. Sean Barnard, we got a lot to discuss. Of course, Sean covers all things NBA for us, Sixers with the focus on, but essentially Sean does it all with us as well. You hear him on Saturdays, Tough Cover Radio Show. Mark Henry Jr. getting married next weekend, correct?
Yeah. Yes, next weekend, and we'll be in attendance for that. So no show from either one of us that weekend.
Nice, man. Great to hear. All right. We got a lot to discuss. First and foremost, let's start with what I put the topic out there, and then we'll get over to the 76ers. The big story in the sports world, the Lakers found their guy, J.J. Redick, 4-year deal. This is the 10th head coach for the Lakers since they let go of Phil Jackson. That's crazy to think about. They have just been going through coaches left and right. And we know what it's been like to coach LeBron over the years. So simply put, I'm wondering if this is a no-brainer for JJ Redick, right? He's 39 years old. He's got an opportunity to go from coaching 9-year-olds to coaching an NBA franchise as the Lakers. Like, we can't look at it any other way when it comes to JJ Redick's perspective, correct? Like, he had to take this gig. This is a tremendous get for JJ Redick, right?
Yeah, I think that's how he looks at it in his mind. It is coaching the Lakers. It does come with the prestige. You are coaching LeBron James, all these things. I think he did have that itch to get into coaching. Now, situationally, I don't think it's an ideal situation. That I still think this is a hired to be fired type of position. You're in a win now spot without the right amount of win now talent. I do think there's a real chance that JJ Redick ends up being a very good NBA head coach. That we've seen plenty of guys make that transition. I do think he has a brain for basketball. And as much as we make a lot of jokes about some of the inside basketball that he does talk, he does feel very passionately about it, care about it, and know the sport at an extreme level. So I do give JJ a great amount of respect there. I'm a little just nervous or skeptical that they can build out a contender around LeBron at this point in time and Anthony Davis at this point in time. I think if they went Dan Hurley, or if Dan Hurley went there, I guess is the better way to put it, that you'd be looking a little bit more in the wide view. I don't know if Redick's the missing piece to elevating. I still look at last year as Darvin Ham was a problem, not the problem. So I think he's got a lot of work to do, but I am happy for JJ.
Yeah, I think it's a great get for JJ Redick. Are you pulling for him? Is there anything that pushes you one way or the other when I ask you that? Because like I'm kind of torn. I want to see him fail. He is smug. It is JJ Redick. But he's changed over the years, and I think like he's become that dude where it's like, all right, he's going to have this arrogance about him. That's just what it is. But at the end of the day, he's a great basketball mind. Seems like he fights a lot of the good fights out there. It doesn't seem disrespectful. I don't know. But I kind of want to see it blow up at the same time. And that's not so much just on JJ's shoulders. That's on everything. That's like, I feel that way because of it's the Lakers, because LeBron went there, because they got Anthony Davis, because everybody expects them to compete in X, Y, and Z. Like I'm almost definitely pulling for catastrophe above JJ and the Lakers turning this thing around. But at the same time, as I say that, Sean, I mean it. Like it would be cool to see JJ Redick take this franchise and all of a sudden they turn it into just a new vibe out there, playing loose, and they're winning games. Now, I don't know, like regardless, even if they go on like a 10-game win streak to start the season, I don't think anybody's pretending that they can win it all because there's it's such a long run. But yes, at the end of the day, we want to be entertained, correct? Where are you at as far as the fanfare behind it for the Lakers and JJ with LeBron?
Yeah, well, my honest take is I do expect catastrophe. I'm not rooting for that, but that is my expectation. And while I agree with you that I don't think that there's really any chance for this team to win an NBA championship, I don't think that's the perception league-wide or within Lakers circles, that this is viewed as a retooling. They're taking this is their next step to a championship. And if we just want to look at it objectively here, we're talking about LeBron James at age 40, talking about Anthony Davis at age 31, coming off a career high in games played. We're talking about Austin Reeves and potentially D'Angelo Russell if he opts into his player option as a third option there. Is that a championship contender to you? I don't think so. And we're talking about, we saw the level of success that the Lakers obviously did not have it to this past year. They don't have a ton of room to maneuver from a salary cap perspective or make changes this offseason. So I do expect catastrophe. I think expectations are going to be too high. I'm not rooting for JJ to get dealt a bad hand here, but I do think it's likely that he probably becomes a good head coach at a second location, and this is a bit of a strong learning curve where he's thrown to the fire right here.
What, D'Angelo Russell isn't moving it for you? Rui, Prince, Dinwiddie, you just we're not going to give them an opportunity to go beat up on the Denver Nuggets in a 7-game series.
I think they'll be an okay team. I don't think they're going to suck, but they're not going to be better than the OKC Thunder, who just got Alex Caruso yesterday. They're not going to be better than the Nuggets, who are going to rebound off last year. The Mavericks, who are going to add to what they built this year. There's a lot of good teams in the West. The Timberwolves only going to get better. I don't think the Lakers are really that close to any of those 4 teams, and there's more teams coming. The Spurs are going to take a leap this year. There's plenty of other teams that are intriguing. The Clippers, who knows? So I just think there's a lot of competition in the West. I don't know if the Lakers are one JJ Redick away is kind of my take there, but who knows? Maybe they can get creative and make something happen, bring in a Trae Young or something like that to change things, but they got to get active to make that the case.
Trae Young, complete free agent, correct?
No, under contract, but the Hawks are going to split up Trae Young and DeJounte Murray pretty much by all assumptions here. So one of them is going to go somewhere. There's been some connections to Trae Young, the Lakers, so it wouldn't shock me if that's the case there.
Who's the number one free agent that is available on their own this NBA offseason?
Paul George / LeBron, but each of them have the player option, so they would have to opt out of it. Paul George is the most likely to hit the market, so that's the guy that I would give straight up. And we are starting to see guys get picked off, like Malik Monk re-signing. That was a guy who was pretty targeted by a lot of teams. That was expected. I honestly thought he was going to end up going to the Magic. So, but to straight up answer your question, Paul George is the premier free agent this cycle.
Yeah, which I did know, and I thought he did have the player option. It's funny, I just threw that in. Top NBA free agents. This article was just posted on June the 19th from Hoop Type.
Mm-hmm.
You know who's number one?
Who's that?
Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah, I mean, technically, there is a restricted there. So Tyrese Maxey isn't going anywhere, so somebody just got to worry about that. But I guess technically you could make that the case.
Hey, man, that's how you get clicks right there. That's a nice job by that author. I want to give a shout. You know what? Let me give him a shout out.
Michael Scotto, probably.
Frank Urbina and Raul Baranga. Hey, nice work. You included Tyrese Maxey. I was like, whoa, what the heck? Yeah, all right. So, and then it goes Paul George, and then it goes LeBron, and then it goes OG, and then it goes James Harden. All right, we're gonna get into the Sixers in just a second, but just staying with this Lakers front. Yeah, JJ Redick, we kind of knew that was the deal, that he was going to get the gig. Nobody was shocked by the announcement. 4 years. How did he get that job in your mind? Is it something as simple as like the podcast works? Is it something as simple as, hey man, Joe Mazzulla's, how old is Joe Mazzulla?
39, I believe, 40.
I didn't even think he was that. So anyways, there is something to be said about these young coaches connecting with their players. And oh, by the
35.
way, 35, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, and LeBron signs off on it. That's obvious. Your take
And by
on
the way,
that?
despite the reports that LeBron had no involvement in this hiring based on his records there.
I think we all are in agreement, right? I think you and I are definitely in agreement that LeBron is staying in LA
Yes.
and that most likely the Lakers will draft Bronny, right?
Yeah, I think that's most likely. The little, I guess, asterisk I'll throw next to it is when you look at the timeline of things, is the draft is next Wednesday and Thursday. We know Bronny's eligible. The deadline on that player option is June 30th, so 3 days after the fact there. So if a team does want to snipe Bronny and draft him a little sooner than the Lakers are willing to, that is about as strong of a leverage play as you could take. I could see a team like the Phoenix Suns doing that or something along those lines. But in all likely cases, I do think the Lakers just end up drafting Bronny and LeBron stays there. To me, JJ Redick being hired was kind of the nail in the coffin that LeBron isn't leaving.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think JJ. Well, maybe JJ does take that gig. Like I said, at the end, you got to be realistic. This is an opportunity to coach the LA Lakers in the
Right.
NBA. Only 30 of those spots available. And when the Lakers come calling like Dan Hurley, you got to take that call. There was some stuff out there. Dan Hurley did hop on a Lebitard show and said that, like, hey, man, everybody does have a number. He didn't know what that number was. Clearly, the Lakers did not hit that number. But if the Pistons are interested in spending an extra $165 million, maybe they'll call Dan. I kid. But he did put that out there to put a little bow on that conversation we had, where I know I was fighting the good fight saying everybody's got a number. Everybody's got a number. So anyways, okay, so to put the bow on the Lakers, yeah, JJ's going to take that gig as far as the entertainment value is concerned. I'm tuned in. I'm intrigued, and we'll see. It does open up some things on ESPN. I think ESPN needs to really look themselves in the mirror and just get back to bringing the entertainment value behind these games. Like, I love Doris Burke. I think JJ did a great job. Mike Breen's tremendous. But at the end of the day, you need people to sometimes be characters on television. You need, like the NBA Finals doesn't need the X's and O's breakdown. Because you're getting those fans that don't tune in from time to time throughout the course. The average fan. It's the NBA Finals. Give them a little something pizzazz in that booth. And man, that they didn't have it with JJ. And I know Legler is being floated out there to fill in for JJ. And I love Timmy Legler, but I just don't think that that's the right path. Give me somebody out there that maybe is new, up and coming, that adds a little bit more to the broadcast. That's just my 2 cents. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a place for both as far as the X's and O's, the storytelling. I do think they need to lean into kind of the storytelling aspect and kind of highlighting like what this is about, a little more real journalism side of things, maybe not giving Stephen A. Smith $25 million a year to be exactly who he is. I think we get plenty of Stephen A. Smith as currently constructed, but there are rising stars, like you mentioned. Andrea Carter is somebody who I think was excellent every opportunity that she got. I actually did like JJ on the mic. I think he did a nice job from the X's and O's standpoint. But I agree, not like the most electric personality. I like Legler as well, but I think he's a little more X and O's guys. So I do think that there needs to be kind of a look themselves in the mirror and that the loudest voices are not always the best ones there and kind of adjust accordingly on that note.
Yeah, there's got to be a little bit in the middle. I would assume there are people out there. Don't be afraid to find new blood. And you know what? You're right. They do have some really good, talented voices inside those hallways at ESPN, and a lot of them are girls, are women. So
Andrea Carter, I think, is excellent. She was pushed pretty heavily during these playoffs, and I thought she crushed it on every single opportunity.
I think McNutt is
my
far and away. If I had to choose, like, I would go Monica McNutt. She is so natural, smooth, funny, not afraid, going toe to toe with Stephen A. and not backing down. And then, obviously there's some things I don't know if she's been on First Take since. I don't think she has actually, but I could be mistaken on that. Regardless, we'll see how it plays out. Yeah, look, I think there's a few different teams out there, right? And I'm not a fan of the 3-man booth. I don't think you need the 3-man booth, but at the same time, for the NBA Finals, why not do it? We'll see. We'll see what ESPN does, but they're going to have some interesting decisions to be made as far as that is concerned. Now that they lost JJ Redick. All right. Let's get on over to what's taking place in the NBA right now. And we had a trade today. Alex Caruso heading to Oklahoma City, and Giddey going to Chicago. Now, what are the big details for you? Because I think there's some things I was reading on the timeline. First and foremost, number one, we know the Chicago Bulls front office, they're not good.
Correct.
That organization as a whole, top to bottom, not good. So it doesn't surprise me that they would have screwed something up here. But I don't know if it's true or not. Was there a better deal to be had from Oklahoma City's perspective? Did the Bulls get fleeced here? Giddey's a decent player, but Caruso to me proves more of a worth, plays a position that you need more so than Giddey in my mind. I think it's a great get for OKC. Did the Chicago Bulls get fleeced in your mind?
I do think the Chicago Bulls got fleeced, and like you, I'm not surprised by it. That this is a team that had rejected offers of multiple first-round picks for Caruso that instead wanted the young talent with Giddey. That's a bit of kind of like a, depending on your mindset on things, that's clear they wanted a young player in return. I'm not a Josh Giddey guy. Full off-court stuff aside, I think he's a flawed basketball player. I think he wasn't capable of playing on the floor with that OKC Thunder team, and it was kind of interesting. I have a great deal of respect for Sam Presti in the Oklahoma City front office. They put out a nice press release today basically saying that we evaluated what the best route of future for this team is, kind of talked through things, and that was with Josh Giddey coming off the bench. We talked through that with Josh. He talked about he wanted to explore other opportunities, and we found that fair, and then that's what led to this deal here. And the Thunder got better as a result of this. That I do think Alex Caruso, there's been a lot of comparisons to the Derek White trade for the Celtics as kind of a difference-making player. I do think he fits that archetype, that a defense with Lou Dort and Alex Caruso just hounding people on the perimeter is going to be scary for the Oklahoma City Thunder team. I think they're one big man signing away from being the legitimate favorites in that Western Conference. So I do think they got fleeced. I do think Alex Caruso is a missing piece, and I do think the Bulls are going nowhere fast right now.
Yeah, this is a team we've talked about quite a lot over the last few years, and specifically me. I know that I had expectations for them probably 3 years ago, and I think I learned at that point in time, don't count on anything Chicago Bulls related. These seasons continue to add up and finish faster and faster every year. But we know that the Chicago Bulls are their own worst enemy. And
yeah,
I think will there be another move from the Chicago Bulls perspective? Are they waving the white flag? Is this retooling? Where does this move mean anything to you in regards to that?
Yeah, they very much want to get off Zach LaVine, and I think are even more motivated to get off LaVine than was the case with Caruso. I'll say from a Sixers angle, who have been connected to Zach LaVine quite a bit, I was intrigued by the aspect of pairing that in a trade, a LaVine and Caruso deal. That was something that had my ears perked up. I still have LaVine as maybe like an option E or an option F, but not something that I'm super high on from the Sixers perspective. But the bottom line is from the Bulls, I do think he is moved on from. It wouldn't even shock me if they're attaching an asset to get off that type of money. The Kings seem like the most likely destination to me, and I honestly do kind of like that fit. I think LaVine's better than the perception of him at this point, that he's not this damaged good that he's being talked about as, but he is a guy that certainly needs a change of scenery. Nikola Vucevic is also a player that has been rumored to they being in talks to move on from. They got to do some stuff. They got to move on. I don't understand this run it back mindset. Apparently they want to re-sign DeMar DeRozan as well. So who knows what's going on, but I don't think the Bulls are done this offseason.
I got an idea.
Hit me.
You bring back Drew Holiday. You get Vucevic. Go dial up Mo Harkless. Is he still in the league? I don't know. Is he with Portland?
He might be.
I think, yeah. And Thad. Let's bring Thad. I think it's his birthday today. There you go. Wow. Let's bring all these guys back. Why not? I know that there's a lot of people going, which was so funny when the Celtics ended up winning that championship. People were like, oh my goodness, Sam Hinkie got rid of Drew Holiday. I'm just like, are you guys out of your mind right now?
Yeah.
Like, what is going on? I know we touched on that, but just
a lot of revisionist history. A lot of it. History.
Yeah, you're right about that. All right.
And by the way, I don't want it to get lost. Al Horford, who's getting his victory laps. Sixers fans should, as I will, forever hate Al Horford. That I don't want to get lost. They did not use him improperly. It was not this. He didn't care. He didn't try while he was in Philadelphia. This is the only location that he played poorly, and he played poorly. Like, don't let that get lost here. They gave him this massive contract in free agency where he got to choose wherever he wants to go. He was acting like he was getting held hostage by the city while his family members are bashing Philadelphia and how much he hates it here. And then he mailed it in. So Al Horford, he's the only guy on the Celtics team that I really still feel a level of animosity for, but I hate that guy forever.
Well said. Couldn't agree with you more. It was it stung when Horford was in a Sixers uniform because if I remember correctly what I was saying, I know number one, I was saying he's out of Boston because he was a Sixers killer. And it was like,
Yeah.
all right. He was also paired up with Joel Embiid, the size underneath. I thought that was going to be, something new and different and exciting. I liked Horford as a player, and he had that winning polish to him. I know they never got over the hump, never won a championship, but he felt like he knew what it took. Like he would know what it takes to get the Sixers over the hump, be that
Yeah.
veteran presence. And then he suited up and he was atrocious. And I still give Daryl Morey flowers as much as possible for getting out of that contract. That might be, to this day, the best move that Daryl Morey has done running the 76ers. Would you agree?
Uh,
Did
certainly
he
in the
draft
mix for.
Maxey?
He did. He did. So I
Okay,
think that's
okay.
probably the
Yeah, yeah,
answer.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
that was like his first true move that they happened the same night that this was a draft night trade that they sent away Horford there. So
Was it?
that was probably the best day of Daryl Morey's Sixers tenure,
Yes.
was operating on all that. So I'll give that to you there. But yeah, they absolutely had to backtrack on that one. They just had to swallow that type of money. Danny Green was ultimately who the trade was for. And for Horford, by the way, Celtics fans should be thanking these Sixers because the reason Horford is successful is number one, learning to adjust to launching three-pointers, which he did in Philadelphia. And number two, the reason that he still has legs left is he basically got to take a year and a half off when he was traded to the Thunder, played like 25 games, and they had him sit out the rest of the season, and then worked his way back to Boston from there. So if he didn't have that time sitting out, I don't think he looks as fresh and still moving as well as he probably currently is.
No. Played well, had a couple good stretches throughout the course of the playoffs, had a good finals game, I'm pretty sure. Played well, and look, he fits with Boston. He enjoys playing for Boston. They need to put his jersey in the rafters. Might as well. He played a ton for them, but regardless, whatever. One more on the Boston Celtics since we're here, and we'll get over to the Sixers and the rumors and everything that's happening there. Correct me if I'm wrong. The Celtics won the NBA Finals, and this is literally like one of the first times that we saw a team with the approach of drive, dish, shoot threes to a point, right? Like Golden State fits into that mold, right? Wouldn't you say? Or was it more of a push for the Celtics and the way that their offense run would drive, dish, hit the three, shoot the three a bunch, and it eventually got them over the hump, and they won the NBA championship. Again, when you start thinking about shooting threes, you think about the greatest team ever with the Golden State Warriors on that front. But where do you stand on that conversation?
Yeah, I think defensively they deserve a lot of credit as well, Boston, that I think that was as
Yeah.
much a reason for their success. Having just a perimeter defense of Drew Holiday, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum is really frightening stuff. And particularly like Tatum gave them the flexibility to be playing as a small ball center for a good portion of these playoffs and in the finals, which he gave Gafford some trouble. So I honestly give defense a huge reason for their success there. I think simplified that to an extent, they probably leaned into this more than any other team has. I think Golden State did it a little differently, that there was more motion. Like Boston created most of their looks by driving and dishing. You're absolutely right. It was attacking the basket and kicking out the shooters. It's pretty simplified offense, but it's effective and they have guys that can hit on every level. So they found their system. They kind of worked and got closer and closer to this style year in and year out. So that it was kind of a work in progress, not something that they fully committed to until this season. So to an extent, I think you're right that they're probably the team that has leaned into that the most, but I do give their defense probably maybe even more of a reason for their success than their offense.
All right. So with that being said, let's get on over to the 76ers conversation here. And of course, there's a lot of dates that are coming our way. I asked Sean before our hit here whether or not we're going to have new Sixers players by the 4th of July holiday. And he said,
absolutely, we will.
Yeah, which is crazy, but that's the way it works. We got the NBA draft next week, and not just draft players. I'm talking about possible free agents, possible new names, big names on the Sixers by 4th of July holiday.
Yeah, we're talking about the draft taking place next Wednesday and Thursday, and then on July 1st, which is the Monday, is when free agency will fully open there. The Sixers have found themselves connected to just about every big-ticket free agent and should continue. We did hear they seeming to losing a little bit of interest in Paul George, or there not being quite the path that once was expected there. I was a bit caught off guard by that update there, but the bottom line is the wheels of the NBA offseason are turning. The Sixers are going to be directly involved in everything, and I expect them to be very active on draft day, not just for selecting players, but moving around and potentially doing some of the Daryl Morey-like trades, such as when he traded the 23rd pick for DeAnthony Melton, or moving around for some win-now veterans. I do expect that to be the case.
Excellent. Well, Get Up this morning was playing Fact or Fiction. Great game. And I think it said something on the lines of the 76ers need Paul George to win an NBA championship, and Udonis Haslem said fact. We talked about Paul George. We've been talking about him for quite some time. Don't get me wrong. I think Paul George is a tremendous player. I don't know if he is the ultimate difference maker to get them to an NBA championship. I just want to be upfront about that. I think there needs to be some other pieces, strengthening their bench. It's not just let's get Paul George and Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid together, and all of a sudden they're going to win the chip next year. I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. But and I also believe this too, Sean. I'm sure you're on the same boat with me on this one, where not going to believe everything we're hearing right now. And the reports are the reports. I get it. But I still believe, look, you press me right now. I think Paul George stays in LA. I think they keep the band back together. James Harden, Paul George, Clippers. They got Ty Lue, brand new stadium is, I believe, this year. I think that opens this year. Is it this year? I want to say it is. Yeah, I think it is this year. So it's like, all of that put together, even if it's not this year, it's the following. So it's like more of a reason to stay there. He's from LA. I thought Paul George always wanted to be in LA. I think he stays in LA. But from the Sixers standpoint, where do you what percentage are you putting on Paul George ending up in a Sixers uniform, whatever way it comes this year?
Yeah, and it is officially this year that the Clippers Stadium is opening. As far as the Paul George to Philadelphia, so I thought it was interesting the Shams report mentioning specifically the draft date. What this meant to me, and he kind of went on the Pat McAfee show to elaborate on it today, is that the Sixers are not going to just wait for Paul George and treat that as the only option. That given kind of the timeline of events here, with that starting on July 1st, like the Sixers are, if an opportunity pops up where a Brandon Ingram or a Jimmy Butler or a Zach LaVine or whoever a player that they think fits the bill as a missing piece comes available around the draft date. I've even heard some Mikal Bridges whispers that the draft is particularly tied to him because they will have that 5th first-round pick. Lauri Markkanen is a dark horse name that it would take the Jazz being willing to deal. But there's a lot of names flying around. And I think that is more of what it's about, that they can't get this guarantee from Paul George, that they're not going to sit around and wait. And the other side of things is now Paul George is showing some interest in potentially opting in and then asking to be traded, which gives him a little leverage for finding a new location. But from my stance, and I've been one of the most pro Paul George guys as far as the Sixers options, the biggest selling point to me for Paul George was the standpoint of you can sign him without having to give up anything, that there's no trade, there's no draft picks being sent out. You just sign the check and he comes to Philadelphia. That to me was the appeal. If he's doing an opt-in and trade, it loses a lot of my appeal for Paul George. So I put the chances a lot lower than I were at this time yesterday for sure.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too when I was reading a little bit into the details 2 days ago, and I was like, "Oh man, I didn't think that was going to be the case," but here we are, and he's one of the better players out there, and he's proven his worth, and I think a lot of franchises would love to get Paul George on their starting 5. We'll see how that one plays out. Anything else from the Sixers front as far as rumors are concerned that are catching your attention? Uh-oh. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we lost Sean Barnard. We lost Sean Barnard. Let's see if we can get him in now.
Back.
There he is. You were listed 2 times. All right. We will pick that up. I will edit that out. Bing, bang, boom. 3, 2, 1. All right, Sean, any other rumors that are catching your attention from the Sixers front?
Yeah, I think the LaVine stuff is notable. I do think that's like a legitimate name that will continue to be thrown. Again, I mentioned that was probably my option E or option F. Brandon Ingram is an intriguing one from a money standpoint, that with his cap hit, there's a little more flexibility. We're talking about 36 million versus around 50 million for the Butler or Paul George. This is a little more wiggle room to add some win now role players around the edges with that. I think Ingram's a guy who's climbed up the list, and I think has Morey's interest a little bit. The age is appealing there. Still a guy about to turn 27. Ingram, Jimmy Butler has found his way back into with an increased likelihood that he will be dealt from Miami. So there's a lot of these names cycling. I think it's going to be a domino effect. but I do expect the Sixers to be picking up the phone, calling for just about every one of these guys, and then whoever it works itself out, they're going to strike on. But I think Ingram, things are trending towards in a way that I didn't feel that way until now.
Brandon Ingram shot 35% from downtown last year.
Low volume too, which I don't like. He is a guy that, from a personally, what's frustrating me, he will very much pump fake out of 3-pointers and shoot long twos in a very Tobias Harris like way. I hate that about them, but he is a guy that can create, can put the ball on the floor, a better defender. He's better than Tobias Harris, but he does have some similar concerning traits.
All right. Is there a name that no one is discussing in your mind? Is there a name that you picked up a long time ago that you've been holding on to that maybe Daryl Morey has an infatuation with? Is there a name out there that's under the radar right now besides Brandon Ingram, Paul George, all the names that we've been continuing to hear?
I think DeJounte Murray hasn't been connected to the Sixers at all, and I do think that's a name that makes sense. I think it'd be interesting pairing him with Tyrese Maxey. I think Murray's another guy who would benefit from a new location. I think he hates playing next to Trae Young. I think he can play on and off ball there, and he has a much lower cap hit as well. We're talking about $26 million for him, which is about half of a Paul George. And if you are willing to give that to DeJounte Murray, maybe you can overpay for a Kentavious Caldwell-Pope or bring in another guy. And then we're talking about a more well-rounded roster. So Murray's the guy I would throw out there. I think, to be honest, I think Ingram's probably the most likely at this point in time, but that has shifted a great deal. But DeJounte Murray's the name that I haven't seen get any attention, and I do think is at least a possibility for the Sixers.
All right. Wavy Dad checking in. He says, we got to revamp our priority list. LeBron, Katie, Laurie, Ingram, Bridges. That should be the list. Michael Bridges?
Yeah, both Bridges getting a little bit of love too. Miles Bridges, there has been some Sixers connections with. I know that's a controversial one, and you can kind of feel how you feel about that. Mikal Bridges is absolutely the prize to me. That would be the ideal. I kind of feel personally that with both Lauri Markkanen and Mikal Bridges, that I'm calling them, I'm picking up the phone, I'm saying, we'll give you all 5 first-round picks right now. I know that's a ton, but make them say no. That for these guys that are untouchable, make them prove that, because that is a strong offer that if they really are kind of on the fence and they're just publicly saying this. If I'm Daryl Morey, I'm making them reject that trade. It's kind of my mindset now. I mean that specifically for Mikal Bridges and Lauri Markkanen.
Yeah, I don't think you need to go down to Miles Bridges. That's just there's too much there. There's too much there. And for a team, like, he's not going to lead this team to a championship. I know he's a good player, but there's other players out there that clearly don't carry that amount of baggage. And he's not the first player to be brought into a Philadelphia franchise with what he did. And damn, classifying that as baggage is, I feel dirty even saying that. So he shouldn't be in the damn league, if we're honest with ourselves. But regardless, definitely not the first player that's been down that path before, whatever professional league we're talking about here. I would pass on that. But Mikal Bridges, if we can do what they should have done earlier and kept him when they drafted him and bringing him back, I think that would be a good move. He definitely seems like he wants out of Brooklyn. Why not? Give it a shot. The other guys on that list, LeBron's not leaving. Kevin Durant's not going anywhere. Like you just said, I do agree with you on Markkanen. Ingram's a realistic possible, and Bridges is there as well. So we'll see. Anything else on the Sixers front for you, Sean, before we move on?
Yeah, and I see another comment coming in saying who's the starting power forward next season. That is kind of an interesting question. That's been kind of the hardest part of this entire puzzle is whoever that big fish is, whether it is a Jimmy Butler or a Paul George or a Brandon Ingram, whoever that guy is, like the pieces you need around him change pretty drastically for what those complementary skills that are important. So I think that's another reason why the Sixers have kind of cooled off on the Paul George pursuit is you'd rather get this big piece in place so then you can round out. Like, for example, if you do bring in, say, a Lauri Markkanen, you don't need a starting power forward because that's your guy there. And then you're talking about bringing in Kentavious Caldwell-Popes or shooters. And Markkanen only carrying like a $24 million cap hit, so you have some flexibility there as well. Then on the other hand, if it is like a, say, Jimmy Butler here, you do need some volume three-point shooters to surround. So my honest gut feeling says the starting power forward is probably Nico Batum next year, that I do think he's back, and I do think that he's probably going to play more of that role than a true small forward. They do need to get like an impact rebounder, whether that is an Andre Drummond. There's plenty of other names that are guys that are just like athletic. Jalen Smith is another guy who's popped in free agency, so that wouldn't surprise me at all either. But I guess that's the biggest holdup is they need to get this big fish or at least figure out who that quote unquote third star is before you can round out the rest of the guys, which is a difficult problem to have.
All right, moving off of the NBA. Actually, one more in the NBA before we move off and get on over to the Phillies conversation. NBA draft, as you just brought up, next week. Our good friends over at Vice and Tim Murray just posted this. Do you know who the second favorite to go number one for next week's draft is right here, right now? And you can get him at plus 200.
Is that Klingon? Is he that high? That's crazy. So as of 3 weeks ago, I checked, he was plus 1,500 to be the one pick. I checked last week, he was back down to plus 700. What is really driving that is the word has got out that Alex Sarr, who's the guy that I identify as the top prospect in this draft and the guy that I believe should be the one pick, doesn't want to go to Atlanta, which I find a little bit strange. He's not sold on being like, from a fit standpoint, that Atlanta's pretty clear that they just want a Clint Capella like center that's catching lobs, blocking shots. Alex Sarr is more than that he's more of a 5-out style of player. He wants to put the ball on the floor, dribble. It seems like he's not buying what Atlanta's selling, and I don't believe he's even had an official workout with them. So that's kind of the driving force for that line movement there, but I am kicking myself for not jumping on that plus 1,500 because I did talk about it a little bit at that point.
Yeah, and you can get that in Jersey. You can bet on the NBA draft and all drafts in New Jersey, but state of Pennsylvania, you can't. Yeah, I know we talked about it, and kid's a beast. I didn't think he was. I figured he'd be up there, but at the end, one of those guys that we really didn't have too much information on would have been going number one overall. But here we are now, and with that being said, of what you just brought up, it could be the case if they don't want to waste that pick on a guy that doesn't want to be there. Of course, that makes a ton of sense. And Klingman's a pretty badass player in his own right. So we'll see how that one works out. Go ahead.
And the other part about it, which is like this draft in particular, for starters, I'm more optimistic of this draft than most. It's certainly lacking like the top end stars, but I just think there's a lot of really good role player type guys. You obviously aren't looking that for the number one overall pick. Both Alex Sarr and Zachariah Reese-Shea are more of kind of these upside swings / risks that you don't have a true feel for what they are or what they could be. They definitely have bust potential as well as superstar potential. For Donovan Klingon, you know exactly what you're getting with him to an extent, probably more than any other prospect in this draft, that he's going to be a smart player, a winning player, a guy that rebounds, catches lobs, defends at a high level, plays really good drop coverage. There's a lot to like about Donovan Klingon. So while he's not kind of your traditional archetype for a one pick, I honestly think there's a very much a likely world where he may never even make an all-star game, but I do think he can be a very good starting caliber center for a long time in the NBA. And if you're okay with that, which I think is still valuable, you're cool with that at the one pick. So I think that's kind of the push, is you know exactly what you're getting with him in a way that isn't the case with either of these other real two options.
Let me get some NBA comps while we're on the draft. Klingon, Aaron Gordon, does that work for you?
He's bigger than Gordon. Like Gordon's probably 6'8" and more of a power forward. Klingon's real deal 7'2". I probably put him more like DeAndre Jordan's not quite it because he doesn't have quite that level of verticality. But when you think of the best version of DeAndre Jordan on both sides of the floor, I see a little bit of that in Klingon's game. I'm also a little more optimistic about Klingon as a passer than I think people give him credit. They did a lot from him off of like playing out of the post, more so from a stationary aspect. He's not killing people off the short roll or anything, but I do think that there's a little playmaking to his game. So I'll probably go with DeAndre Jordan, but or maybe the better version of DeAndre Ayton when he actually tried. Something like that, I think I could see him fitting.
All right. What about Alex Sarr? You got an NBA comp for me on that one?
Pascal Siakam would be my name there. That there's a lot of that in his game. He wants to put the ball on the floor. He's a little bit smoother of an athlete than Pascal. There's kind of this awkwardness to Pascal's movement, which works for him, but Sarr's a little more smooth and all that. He moves incredibly well. He's a real deal 7-footer. I like his game a lot. And again, I do think he should be the one pick, but he clearly doesn't want to go to Atlanta.
And help me with the name here. Zachariah Reese-Shea.
Zachariah Reese-Shea is most of what I've heard it. I've seen a lot of Michael Porter Jr. comps for him. He's 6'10". He's a shooter. This comes out way more insulting than I mean it to, but I see some Davis Bertans in his game. He's definitely a sniper. He's going to be a 3-and-D guy that his shooting is going to make or break what he is as an NBA player. I'm a little bit skeptical of him just from the talent level and who he played against, what that is, but not a terrible player and a guy who has shot over 50% from three this year. So can't argue with numbers.
And that's he's the favorite right now on DK, minus 110 to go number one overall. And then finally, Castle at 30-1. Who's your NBA comp on that one?
I'm sorry, who was that?
Your NBA comp on Castle.
Stephon Castle?
Yeah.
That's a tough one here. So, yeah, it's interesting with Castle. The storyline here is he refused to work out with teams with a starting point guard. He very much wants to be a starting point guard, and he was not that at UConn. He played a lot in the dunker spot. I have a hard time putting like a full comp on him. I think he should buy into being like a wing. There's even a little Aaron Gordon that I could see him going down that route, but he doesn't want to play like that. He's in like the 6'6", 6'7" range, but he wants to be a ball handler. So have a hard time putting a comp based on stylistically what he's going to be asked to do at the NBA level. Again, I think he's more of a wing that should lean into that, but he's clearly set on being a point guard. So it'll be interesting what his role is.
Like it. All right. Give me some interest for next week's NBA draft. And if you're in the state of New Jersey, you can wager on it. Good luck to everybody on that one. All right, let's keep it moving. Let's get on over to the Phillies and Diamondbacks. A little revenge back at Citizens Bank Park. Phillies are running out Taiwan Walker. That's never a good thing. Jordan Montgomery going for the Diamondbacks, minus 130 for the Phils. 9.5 is your total on that one. Cole Hamels getting the treatment this evening. Should be a pretty cool day at the ball yard. A lot of people I know heading now one. I'll tell you what, it's going to be hot. It's going to be hot. I believe you're getting rings, championship replica rings today, which is pretty cool. But, man, you're going to earn every bit of that. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And cool move by Dahl to sacrifice the number for Cole Hamels there. So shout out to him. That was a cool little gesture. And shout out to Cole for getting his moment. So I saw Luke Arcaney speculating on the timeline. Now that he did sign a one-day contract, if the Phillies are to win a world championship this year, does Cole Hamels get a ring?
That's pretty funny. He sticks around tonight. He'll get a fake one. I know that much.
I'm willing to let him throw a couple innings if it helps the case.
You're damn right. Absolutely. Now, the Phillies are in great spot. We were talking a little bit about it yesterday on the show, and long way to go. But at this point in time, with all the injuries that are happening across the league and, the strengths of the Phillies versus the strengths of a team like the Dodgers, I like the Phillies. I really do. So a lot of fun baseball on our way here, but tonight's going to be a pretty cool night at the ball yard. And tomorrow is going to be a fun one as well. Beef Up Front Tailgate. Live, kicking off at about 12:30 tomorrow. It's gonna be another hot one. Beef, Ryan Coyle and his crew going to be down there. Sean Barnard saying he's going to be sliding through. How about that?
Yeah, I'll be on air with Mark Henry Jr. till 1, and I'll swing by and say what's up after, say what up's with people. So Beef definitely has got his game plan, picking the hottest day of the year, which will be interesting. But Sean Brace on the 1s and 2s, I heard. So we're swinging by for sure.
Yeah, man, we got that easy up tent that's going to go above, and I'm going to have a ice cold cooler ready to go filled with water. Yes, I'll be throwing back a bunch of water tomorrow. But it's going to looking forward to definitely catch that game. Of course, Union in action tomorrow night. A lot of good things on the television this weekend. I was just looking at the list. Of course, we got the College World Series. We got the Travelers going off on the PGA Tour. A lot of Olympic stuff, Olympic trials going on. Of course, we just talked about the Phillies there. They got that 11:35 game on Sunday, which is pretty cool to discuss or to tune in and watch. Of course, you got the Live, you got all that. And, don't forget about the Big Three, Shamadar. Don't forget about the Big Three this weekend. All right.
That's right. Little Game 6 hockey tonight, too.
Game 6 tonight. Who you got? Let's go ahead and fire up DraftKings and talk a little bit about the Stanley Cup Finals Game 6. Edmonton, they drug them back to Canada. Right now, you can get the Edmonton Oilers to extend the series at minus 120. Total coming in at 5.5. Where do you stand on tonight's game? Who you got?
Yeah, I'm not a guy that I would say you recommend for your hockey handicapping here, but I'm rolling with the home squad here. A little momentum on the Edmonton Oilers here coming home. Let's get a Game 7. I think Game 7s are like the best thing in all of sports, so I will be rooting for Edmonton to get that actually happening tonight. Would love for that to be the case. So lay the minus 120 with Edmonton. Connor McDavid, bring us home.
I like it. And then they lose in Game 7.
That's fine with me. Game 7 is what it's all about. I just want to feel the moment. I have no real strong opinion on either one of these teams. Bring me all that energy. I want to see it.
I'm right there with you on that one. All right. Great stuff, Sean Barnard. We'll be able to catch you tomorrow on the air with Mark Henry Jr. from 11 to 1 live in studio. Looking forward to catching that, sir. Enjoy the rest of your day and appreciate a couple minutes today on the Daily Ticket, man.
Absolutely. Stay cool out there.
Stay cool, ladies and gentlemen. All right, Sean Barnard, great stuff as always. Coming up, you're going to hear some more programming here on The Gambler. We got X's into you, of course, with the game coming up tomorrow against Charlotte. And a little swinging and ding it coming your way as well. A little U.S. Open recap, and of course, looking forward to the Travelers. I know it's already in action, but trust me when I tell you, swinging and ding it, a great listen. Moose, Mays, and Danielle. Don't touch that dial. Keep it locked right here to the game.